Hello, everybody, and welcome to On the First Tee with JT. I am Janice Thornton with JT Fitness and Golf. I help golfers elevate their golf game, take them to the next level with increasing your strength, flexibility, mobility, and I forgot my last one, balance. That's it, balance. Okay, so welcome everyone, and I want to welcome Tony Wadinsky today, and he is with Rev Up Sales. And I'm so excited to be interviewing him because we all need help in the sales department. And regardless of what you do for a living, you have to sell every single day. And when I met with Tony, actually, he and I are in a golf networking group together. And he and I were riding in a cart and we had a great discussion about what he does. And I really am excited to share Tony with everybody today. So welcome, Tony. Thank you for being
Thanks,
here.
Janice. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. So first of all, tell us about what got you started to start Rev Up Sales.
Yeah, so I've had a 15-year career in sales, anything from being an individual contributor for about half of that to being a sales manager and as well as a head of sales. Also started sales enablement function at an organization. So I've had a very diverse sales background and very diverse sales experience. And one thing I noticed here recently, let's just say over the last few years, is that many sales teams and many sales processes are being very disruptive right now. We've got all this technology coming in. We've got all this information available to buyers at any minute, and they've evolved the way that they buy over these last few years. They're doing more research on their own. They're avoiding salespeople for good reason. And so the buyers have shifted the way that they buy, and sales teams really have not shifted or evolved with them. And so I've noticed this trend here recently over the last few years, and it's really been tough for sales teams. And a lot of teams I talk to today are saying how tough it is out there. And even when they talk to each other, they're feeling the same pain and issues. And this is we see this in the news, right? We see this around layoffs in tech and other industries. And when that happens, it's really a result of this prolonged situation where sales teams are not hitting their number. And unfortunately for other employees, sometimes it's not the sales team that gets laid off or fired. And so, but this prolonged miss of revenue leads to the company needing to make a quick reaction in order to get back to where their bottom line needs to be. And unfortunately, that results in layoffs. So I started Rev Up Sales to really focus on the core of a sales team. So the core being operations, enablement. How do we create something that we can predict? And how can we use that to help accelerate revenue? And so Rev Up Sales is focused on operational and enablement around the sales team and making them as efficient, as effective as they can be. Other piece of Rev Up Sales is I'm partnered with a company called Gap Selling. Gap Selling is a new modern sales methodology that is really helping companies transform the way that they sell. And so with Gap Selling, I'm able to also offer skill development for the team. So Rev Up really helps with operations and enablement. Gap Selling really helps the individual salespeople develop their sales skills to become better sellers.
Well, let me ask this, and I was just thinking when you were talking, and I can't think of what movie it is, but it's the ABCs, always be closing. And I know when, as a pharmaceutical rep, I did that for 15 years. And that was like one of the messages we always got was you just need to always be closing. So how does Gap Selling differ from always be closing with the person?
Yeah, that's interesting you said that, because as part of our training, always be closing is one of our sales myths. So so yeah, that's kind of the old school way of things. And back in the day when people did not have all the information in front of them, they relied on the salesperson to give them that information, and things are a lot different today. So Gap Selling is really focused on understanding the buyer's current state environment. And current state environment really has nothing to do with what you're selling. It has nothing to do with your product or service. Understand the current state environment means you truly have to understand what business problems your buyer is facing, what keeps them up at night, what are the high level things in the annual report that they disclose as risks. So those very high level business problems. And then once you understand their business problems, you have to figure out what impact is that business problem having on that business. Is it causing them to lose revenue? Is it causing them to lose employees? Is it causing them to not be able to scale the business? So once you understand the business problem and the impact it's having, the impact could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars of impact there. You have to then figure out in their current environment, what is causing that? So what is the root cause that is causing that business problem to exist in the first place? And then when we understand what the root cause is, now we can sell. So we can't sell until we understand all of that stuff about the buyer. Once we understand all that stuff and where they want to go, now we can start selling. So once you understand the current environment and the impacts it's having, and you understand where they want to be, that's the future state. So when you have current state versus future state, the difference in between is the gap. And so that's where we get the name gap selling. And as you can imagine, the bigger the gap, the bigger problem that the customer has, the more likely they're going to want to move now and make a decision now to change and do it quickly and willing to spend money to do it.
Well, that's always good then. And that's what we want, is to get them into your pipeline quickly. So,
Yeah.
Well, Tony, this is awesome. I know that for companies out there who are looking for someone to come in and help them with their sales teams, this is what you can truly do, is help these companies help develop their sales teams and find out where they have issues and where you can help them.
Yeah, and one thing to mention, there's certainly a lot of different sales methodologies and approaches out there. Everyone's got their own spin on things. My favorite thing about gap selling and really how it's different is that it's really just centered around the fact of change. People do not make decisions without evaluating their willingness to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter if we're talking business sense, or it doesn't matter if we're talking personal sense. We don't buy things unless we're ready to change. So from a business perspective, what we do for gap selling is the qualification, if you actually have an opportunity, is number one, does the customer have a business problem that you can solve? Mm-hmm. Number two, does the customer admit they have that problem? So you can't say, hey, you have this problem, and them say, oh, no. Number two is they must admit, yes, I do have that problem. Number three is they must be willing to fix that problem. So the problem has to be big enough so that they actually agree they want to fix it. And fourth, final criteria is they must be willing to go on a journey with you to fix that problem. So as salespeople, we are truly just change agents. And Janice, as I talked through those few things, I feel like there's some synergies when your client, is thinking about, hey, am I in shape enough for golf, right? So they're going through that same mental process of, hey, do I have a problem with my physical ability or with my flexibility? Mm-hmm. Do I admit I have it? Do I want to fix it? And then finally, am I willing to go on a journey with you, Janice, to get this happen? So what's so cool about gap selling is it has so much application even outside of sales, because at the end of the day, we're all humans. People buy from humans, for the most part. When they're making major decisions, they're going to keep buying from humans. And so what's great about gap selling has so much application just throughout our lives.
Well, and you nailed it for me too. I mean, it does apply to the fitness world for sure, that people aren't going to go on a journey until they can admit that they actually need help, or that they need some kind of help, and then they have to want it. Because if you don't want it, they're not going to do it. And do they want to do the journey with me or with someone else? I just, like I've always tell people, I want people to be healthy, and at the same time, find what works for you. Whether that is me, awesome. If that's something else, someone else, great. Just get on that journey so that way you can live a healthier lifestyle for sure. So, well, Tony, this was awesome. We will put in the comments how to get a hold of you. And yeah, definitely LinkedIn out there. You need to get in touch with Tony and have him help your companies grow with the sales teams. So thanks, Tony. Thanks for
Thanks,
being
Jen.
on. And we will see everyone later.